What's up guys, Coach Az here. Today I want to talk to you a little bit about why you can't kick head height. I was dealing with one of my students the other day. We were working on getting our kicks up higher and he was describing that he was having this big issue with his roundhouse kick and getting it up to head height. He was describing pain shooting down his IT band and hip pinching, so pain coming into his hip as he tried to elevate the leg. But the main issue he described was that mechanically he didn't feel like he could get his leg to where it needed to be, and he wasn't sure what he needed to work on in order to make that happen. He'd explained to me that he'd been working on hip stretches, he'd been working on the 90-90 position that I'd explained to him, he'd been working on a pigeon pose, all of these things that help us to stretch out in and around the hips. However, in just doing a little bit of pad work with him, I quickly realized what his issue was, and it was far more simpler than he had realized. And in fact, I'd go as far to say that 9 out of 10 of you that are watching this video who struggle with kicking head height, this is going to be your main issue. So the way I got to this conclusion with him was I got him to do roundhouse kicks on the pads with me, and we started really low. So we started with kicking to the leg, and then I slowly incrementally brought the pad up to work it up to the head. What I was looking for is at what height did the technique deteriorate and in what way did it break down? So I'll show you here an example of what was happening. When he was working the leg kick, everything was fine. His knee was slightly above his toe and he was able to fully extend his leg and fully stretch out to that kicking position. However, as we started to raise that kick up and we got above body height, what started happening is his knee began rotating below his foot. Now, most of you know and understand the importance of turning the hip into the roundhouse kick. However, this is not what was happening here. Although it would look like it to the untrained eye, the real issue here was in his hamstrings. What was happening is as his kicks got higher and his hamstrings were put under an increased load, to protect themselves, the body would rotate the hip and force it over to allow the hamstring to relax. It's effectively the body trying to protect itself from you pulling your hamstring. When it has nothing left to give, it will rotate your hip joint to allow your glutes and your hips to take over and your hamstrings the ability to relax. So once I determined this with him, the next thing I wanted to check is whether or not he could touch his toes. So I got him to stand, feet together, legs straight, trying to maintain a neutral spine, which means that he wasn't curving his back over. And I wanted to see how low he could get to the floor. And it was no surprise to me to find that he couldn't touch his toes. He was actually a good foot off of the floor in terms of distance. So whilst he thought all these issues were coming from his hips, the reality is that most of these problems were coming from the larger muscles in the back of his legs, the hamstring. The problem with the hamstring is it's such a big, strong muscle that when it's tight, when it's pulling in the wrong way, it causes issues elsewhere. Tight hamstrings will pull on your glutes. Tight glutes will pull on your lower back. All of this, of course, will affect in and around your hips. This goes the other way as well. So a lot of people who have knee issues and ankle issues, they think the problem lies in that joint. But the reality is, more often than not, it involves the muscles that are surrounding and connecting to it. In particular, these large, strong, powerful muscles such as the hamstring. So what's the remedy for all this? Well, it's quite simple. We need to stretch. But we need to stretch in a smart way that's effectively going to isolate those hamstrings and ensure that we can increase flexibility where it's needed. I talk a lot about the idea of the 80-20 principle, that 80% of your results come from 20% of your work. So whilst it is important to stretch all your muscles and to stay really loose, I really believe that 9 out of 10 will really benefit from just focusing and giving some attention to this muscle group. So today I'm going to give you 3 ways to stretch these hamstrings. One is going to be dynamic, one is going to be simply static, and the other is going to be an assisted stretch. Let's start with the dynamic stretch. Dynamic stretching is ideal at the beginning of your session. So once you've done your warm-up, once you've got your blood flowing and you've got your body temperature up, you've got your heart rate up, then we can work a dynamic stretch. Here, I'm taking my stance and I'm simply swinging my back leg up and down. What I really want to focus on with all of these stretches is ensuring that my legs stay nice and straight so that I'm maximizing the stretch on the leg, but also maintaining good posture. So again, not leaning forward, not allowing my spine to curve, not allowing my chest to point down to the floor. Keep yourself nice and upright. I also like to maintain my guard just to get in a good habit that whenever I'm on one leg, I'm keeping my hands up. I'll do 10 off of each stance, and then I might also do a set where I'm swinging to that sideways plane. Now this is a bit more of a groin stretch, but again, we also want to look after the other muscles, and you're still going to feel this in your hamstrings as well. Dynamic stretching is a great way to warm up your muscles and to help warm them up almost like an elastic band. Every time we go a little bit higher, we stretch it a little bit further. It's a very safe way to do it as long as you're being sensible. Okay, let's take a look at the static stretch now. For the static stretch, although when I tested my student, I got them to bend at the waist to try and touch the floor, this isn't the ideal way to stretch because it allows you to cheat far too easily. Again, it's very easy for us to just curve our spine, to bend over, and then basically be using our back to stretch rather than our legs. So instead, what we're gonna do, we're gonna take one foot and we're gonna elevate it on a platform. Heel on the floor, toes up on the platform as close as we can get. That leg's gonna stay straight whilst our standing leg is gonna bend at the knee. Now, maintaining a strict posture, I'm gonna start bending at the waist and coming forward. You're gonna feel that stretch kick in a lot earlier than if both your feet were flat on the ground. This means that you're gonna be able to get deeper into that hamstring and be less tempted to cheat the stretch by curving your spine. When working static stretches for flexibility, I recommend holding for a minimum of 30 seconds and up to 1.5 minutes for each leg. You can also rep this, so you might do 1 minute on each leg, rest for 1 minute, and then come back and do it again, maybe for a set of 3. Stretching can of course be done daily, but I really recommend that you take a day off in between. That way you can really focus on a good intense stretch when you do it and give your muscles in your body a chance to recover in between. If you're just doing a light loose stretch, you can do that every day. But when we're doing an intense focused stretch on one particular muscle, you can overwork it if you hit it every single day. Finally, here's an assisted stretch you can work. Now, all you're gonna need for this is a belt or a rope. I really recommend a belt because it's got just the right amount of give. You're gonna lay flat on your back, you're gonna put the belt over your foot and bring your leg straight up to the vertical. Now, the idea here is that we're able to now use our arms and this belt to pull our leg up towards us. Again, maintaining a straight back, which is far easier here because we're laying down on the floor. It doesn't have anywhere to go. But also ensuring that our legs are straight, the one that's flat to the ground, and obviously the one that we're stretching that's up in the air. This stretch is great because it doesn't require a partner, doesn't really require any complicated equipment, and it allows you to really get an intense and focused stretch on your own whilst assisting by using the rest of your body. You can also adjust this stretch by bringing your foot across or to the outside of your body to hit the hamstrings at different angles. There's no need to go all the way down and out or all the way across. This is then going to turn into more of a hip stretch. Remember, our focus here is on improving our hamstring flexibility. Now again, you can follow the same principles that we did with the static one here. Work it for 30 seconds, up to 1.5 minutes, and feel free to do a few sets of it in a given session. I recommend with both the static and the assisted to do these after a training session or separately, but with a really good warm up in front of them. Your body is far more receptive to stretching when it's really warmed up and it's able to move through its maximum range of motion. I think you'll find if you give a bit of focus to these stretches over a couple of weeks, you'll very quickly see a big improvement in your ability to kick higher. Don't get too caught up in the minutiae of rotating the hip and all of this stuff if you're lacking the simple capacity to lift your leg up to the given height. Sometimes people get so worried about the little details that they don't focus on the main fundamentals of how the technique works and what we need to do mechanically to get our leg up in the air. All right, guys, take those stretches away, work on them, work on it for a good 2 to 4 weeks, and hopefully you'll start to see improvements in how high you can get that kick. Let us know how you get on in the comment section below. As always, please like the video if you like the video, hit subscribe, and we will see you on the next one.